Now, Israel recently hit with a number of tragedies, most notably the entirely preventable tragedy at Mount Meron on Lag BaOmer last April, where 45 people were crushed to death. But what if I told you that the next tragedy is right around the corner? In fact, it's been waiting to strike for decades, and it could hit at any moment. And worst of all, the Israeli government is giving us the worst possible advice on how to deal with it. Well, it's true, and the coming disaster, which will come, make no mistake, is a massive earthquake slated to hit the region around the Jordan Rift Valley, i.e. Israel, Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, and more. So what should you do? Well, joining me with the answers is certified emergency response specialist Moshe Chertoff. Moshe, thank you so much for being with us. Now, first, I have to make it very clear that the information we are about to present and discuss must not be used as official instruction because it goes against Israel's directions, official directions, and could actually potentially land you in trouble if you follow them. Why is that, Moshe?
That is because the IDF Home Front Command dictates the instructions to the public as to what to do in various emergencies, including an earthquake. And if anyone gives instruction otherwise, then it could cancel your protection in your insurance. And that person also could be held responsible should anything happen physically to anyone who's affected. So unofficially, what used to be the case, what used to be the official line, has been changed a few years ago. And from what back then, we would say drop, cover, hold, very simple. And after the shaking is over, then get outside of the building to a safe area away from trees, power lines, etc. But that change is a dangerous change. I'm from Los Angeles. I've been through a 6.7 earthquake while I was asleep one day. And after I came on Aliyah, there was a 7.1 at my parents' home. Lots of damage. Houses in the area were totally destroyed. And in November of 2013, the National Emergency Authority of Israel warned that a major earthquake in Israel would cause some 7,000 deaths and 8,600 seriously injured, making 170,000 people homeless. And that damage could run up to 200 billion shekels in terms of the money. Obviously, the damage to life is much greater. But what I'm trying to do and have been trying to do for a few years now is not to prevent homeless, but rather to cut the deaths and the injured by thousands, possibly. It's possible. I've, in the framework of my training to people, up until the change was made, I trained on drop, cover, hold. It was a very simple thing to remember. It's what almost all of the countries in the Ring of Fire around the Pacific Ocean, where they have the most earthquakes and heavy earthquakes and ongoing almost every day. This is what they exercise annually in California. There's last year, there were some 6 million people who took part in the exercise, and they exercised this all over the world. In Israel, we decided to change it. So I came to the Minister of Internal Security and made an appeal. I said, this doesn't sound right. Everybody else is doing it this way. He said, well, our experts have determined that because of the large number of substandard buildings in Israel, this is the safest way to go. So I asked people in the state around the Ring of Fire, and I got an answer from the state of Washington, person in charge of public safety, and they said, even if a building is bound to collapse, we still say drop, cover, hold is the safest way.
So before we go on and discuss drop, cover, hold, and all of the advice that you do have for us, I want to really focus on what Israel is telling people to do, and specifically address what makes that instruction potentially so dangerous. So again, what is it that Israel is advocating? And I believe we have a graphic that we can throw up on screen.
Right. They're saying, number one, if you can exit the building, go to an open area. If you're in an office building or in a building where you're just too far from the exit, you don't have time for that. A major earthquake can take 20 to 40 seconds, not much longer than that. By the time you realize it is an earthquake and get up and try to get out, you will also be rushing with a lot of people. You could be crushed in the rush. If you can't do that, they say go to a bomb shelter, mamad in Hebrew. If you can't do that, they say then go to a stairwell and drop a level where you're going to get more protected by the concrete, reinforced concrete in the area. And then if none of those work, then drop, cover, hold. And I'm saying, let's cut to the chase. Anybody in a building which is standard should be remaining there. They shouldn't be going outside. And according to the state of Washington also, even if you're in a substandard building, drop, cover, hold is the safest way. I got really perplexed by this after 30 earthquakes hit the Sea of Galilee a few years ago. Within 2 weeks, And then I got myself invited to the Geophysical Institute of Israel, and they more or less agreed with everything I said. They said they don't have the funding to be able to do a proper campaign to instruct people. So I'm trying to bring it to the Knesset. I was invited back before the last elections were called in 2019. That is the first elections of this last cycle. I was supposed to speak at the committee, but it got knocked away. And so I'm hoping that we're going to get back in there and try to have a real investigation of why we are different than all other countries that have earthquakes on a constant basis. New Zealand had 6.5 a couple days ago. Yeah, and they instruct cover home.
Well, and that really is what's most alarming. In Eilat, we had a 4-point earthquake just last week, just off the coast of Greece and Cyprus and Turkey. There was a 5-point earthquake over the weekend, I think last night actually. So it's very serious. It's very, yeah, it's not as scary, but it's still pretty bad. So what I want to ask you, we're supposed to get a 7.5 or higher. Is that what you said?
Yeah, and I hope it doesn't happen while we're talking, but it could. It could happen 5 minutes after we're done. You can't be absolutely sure that it's not going to hit you in the middle of the night or while you're in an elevator, or if you're in the middle of a dental procedure and everything starts moving. You could be doing 120 on Route 6. It can happen in the middle of the next Mount Meron celebration or in the middle of the next war. We don't know how to predict it yet for more than 20 or 30 seconds. And it could be a catastrophe for the state of Israel, and could also put our security at risk, because if we have to deal with all of these issues in our urban centers, how are we going to deal with everything around us? It's not going to be a good situation. It's not going to be pretty.
So again, I want to wrap this up with a recap on what to do and why, because as you mentioned, in speaking with experts from around the world, they're telling you that even if the building is practically condemned and will definitely fall during the earthquake, stay inside. Why?
That's right. They say that the structure of the building is the best protection you have. Obviously, you shouldn't be sitting next to an external wall, but if you're somewhere away from an external wall, you should get down. They say drop, meaning get down. Things that go flying aren't going to hit you. Cover, get under a sturdy table or anything that'll protect you from things that fall from the ceiling, and hold on to it, because it's not going to stand there when there's a 7.5. It's going to be moving. If you actually try to get up and run, you won't get more than 2 or 3 steps before you're going to fall or get hit by something. And that's where people get killed. A 5-year-old girl got killed 200 meters from my house in Los Angeles when I was there. And she got hit by a clock that went flying off the wall and hit her in the head. So if you're covered by dropping, covering, and holding, you have your best protection. But that's not what I am suggesting that people do right now. What I'm suggesting is that the government reconsider going back to that set of instructions.
Wow. All right. Moshe Chertoff, thank you so much for your time and for sharing this really valuable insight. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Good to see you again. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Good to see you too.